Good morning. So today I wanted to do a second video kind of in this series where I talk about why you should read. And I started the series with my first video with why you should read Joe Abercrombie. And today we're going to talk about why you should read Blake Crouch. Blake Crouch is an American author who is roughly the same age as myself, in his mid-40s. He's from North Carolina. His debut novels was Desert Places and Locked Doors, which he wrote in 2004 and 2005, roughly at the age of 27 and 28. He's written 17 books as of today, 10 of them being standalones. He also has 4 books in the Luther Kite series, and he has one trilogy which he's famously known for, which is this Wayward Pines trilogy. So what makes Blake Crouch a writer that you should read? Well, if you've seen TikTok where they do, if you like this book, then you should read this book type thing, Blake Crouch reminds me mostly of Michael Crichton in the sense that they both write kind of thriller sci-fi where they get into some science, but they keep the pace moving enough to where, you're not lost in all of the vernacular and you feel like you're reading more of a lecture or a high school science book versus an actual book that you want reading for enjoyment. So I think they both really do a really good job with that. And I think probably Blake Crouch has a little bit more upper hand than Michael Crichton in the sense that his books usually are just a tad faster in pace. Now, Crichton obviously does a better job with fleshing out some characters and getting a little more dynamic with the characters, where I think Crouch does a good job. I mean, there's definitely when I think back to his books that I've read, and I've read all of them but one, that he does a good job fleshing out characters and making them dynamic enough and interesting enough to where you don't get lost and it's so plot driven or science driven that you don't really care about the characters and there's no investment as a reader. But he does a really good job, with intermingling that and having a good balance. So what else makes Blake Crouch really, really good writer? I think it's not only his pacing, but I think it's actually his prose as well. I think he's an easy read. He's a pretty straightforward read. He doesn't get into more lyrical stuff in his prose. He's pretty straightforward in how he writes. He keeps it pretty vanilla. At the same time, I find it interesting. I mean, most of his books, honestly, there's a handful of the ones that I read, they're like one sittings. Like you're devouring them. It's just that way. I mean, there's so much that goes on in a given page or a given chapter that you just can't help but go into the next chapter. I mean, most times, I don't know how, I can't speak for you, obviously, but some books, you read like, well, I'll stop after this chapter. And with Blake Crouch, it's hard to stop, honestly. So where do you start if you've never read a Blake Crouch book? I think, honestly, this one is definitely one that he's more known for. Obviously, they are writing they're launching on Apple TV a series that's based around this book. This is a phenomenal starting place. With that being said, I think if you start here, going to some of his earlier works, maybe kind of not a step down, but they're not as good as that one. I think obviously starting here is another good place. This is another recognized. Recursion is another good one that he's known for. His most recent book, Upgrade, some people were kind of wishy-washy on it. I thought this was good as well. But if I had to give you one place to start from, I think his Wayward Pines trilogy is really the best place to start from, honestly. It was adapted for TV in 2015. I think it's fantastic. They're really easy short reads. I mean, most of these floppy paperbacks are 250, 300 pages. They're quick. Again, you get invested so much that you just want to binge through these really quick. And so I found this really, really good. I started with Wayward Pines trilogy, and then I came in and read Recursion and Dark Matter because they were so mainstream at the time. And I was like, yeah, I got to consume everything. So then I went back and got Luther Kite books and some of the other standalones, and I just found them great as well. Dislikes, I mean, there's not a lot to totally dislike. I think if you come into Blake Crouch and you're wanting, more so of, vast expanse, the story to take a lot of different, plot threads where you don't want, just to kind of have, a couple plot threads. You're wanting like this very multi-dimensional plot. You're not going to get that with him. It's not going to be delve into where you're going to have this big, kind of like an epic fantasy where you're going to have politics and you're going to have backstabbing, you're going to have murder, and you're going to have, a chosen one. You're not going to really get that with this, obviously. I mean, you're talking, some of these books are 250, 350 pages. But if you're wanting something that's entertaining, I don't really want to even call it a palate cleanser. It's more of you're wanting some entertainment, you're wanting something fast paced. I think they're a step above what you call beach reads, where they're fun, enjoyable, relaxing. I think these are definitely, worth your while. He is a highly recommend for me. I don't really have any more dislikes than that. His really only dislike for me so far has been that most of the stories I'm wanting a little more because I'm invested in them. And it's not a bad thing necessarily. You just don't want the story to end. But I think from a beginning standpoint, he grabs your attention. I think he does a good job moving the plot along, obviously. And I think he sticks to landing for the most part. There's people that argue some of the endings, especially in this most recent book, Upgrade. The ending was really poorly done. The endings sometimes are what they are, and the journey is obviously more important than the ending destination. And I think Crouch for me has always been solid in terms of reads. So I can't highly recommend him enough. If you get the chance, try Blake Crouch. If you've read a few books or you've had a couple hit or misses, obviously Wayward Pines, Dark Matter, Recursion, Upgrade, I think those are all fantastic reads. He does have a couple other standalones I think are fast paced. If you like Run, Famous, I think those are two all quick reads as well that are really, really well done. So that's it. My second video in this series, why you should read, and today is why you should read Blake Crouch. Hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you later.